We used to imagine music as this invisible thread binding crowds, together the shared soundtrack to long summer days and sleepless nights. In 2025, that thread feels more like a frayed cable hissing under the rain. Everyone sealed inside their own sonic bubble, noise canceling headphones on, an algorithmic playlist carefully tuned to never intersect with the one next door. There's no universal chorus taking over the beaches anymore, no hit barging uninvited into cars stuck in traffic. Your last collective musical memory might be a TikTok clip from 3 weeks ago, and even that only stuck because a friend dropped it in a WhatsApp group before disappearing into the silence of muted notifications. And yet, in the middle of this fragmentation, a few still know how to create a moment that makes everyone look up. One of those rare instances when conversation spills beyond private bubbles and hums in the ambient noise. Taylor Swift just did it with the announcement of her new album, The Life of a Showgirl, and whether you're a fan or not, you've heard about it. Not from a press release or a glossy magazine cover, but on an NFL podcast, as if it were a locker room aside casually slipped between two jokes. Of course, there was nothing casual about it. It's a masterclass in marketing and artistic direction, disguised as a spontaneous moment. And that kind of move is rare in an industry where most song releases feel like Instagram posts the algorithm berries after 10 hours. Which brings us to the question hanging over the whole summer. If even megastars have to invent new ways to rally us around their songs, what happened to the song of the summer? Why don't we share those seemingly indestructible anthems anymore? And more importantly, what's actually filling our playlist when the world outside feels like it's coming apart?
Pour over the facts, stir in some shade. Cappuccino and croissant, where culture tastes strong. Sip the truth, bite the lies, and keep the sugar gone. Cappuccino and croissant, breakfast for your brain. Cappuccino and croissant, where culture tastes strong. Sip the truth, bite the lies, and keep the sugar gone. Cappuccino and croissant, breakfast for your brain.
There are 1,000 ways to announce a new album. The dullest, a sanitized press release sent out at midnight to journalists stifling yawns. The riskiest, dropping the news in an unexpected format, somewhere no one is looking for you. Unless your name is Taylor Swift, in which case everyone is looking for you everywhere and you know exactly how to turn a personal moment into a cultural event. On the 12th of August, 2025, Swift chose the most improbable and therefore most effective stage to unveil her 12th album, The Life of a Showgirl. Not at an awards show, not in a primetime television interview, but on New Heights, the NFL podcast hosted by Travis Kelce, her partner, and his brother Jason. A world seemingly light years away from the culture pages of Rolling Stone. The result: the pop sphere caught fire, Swift's official website crashed under the traffic, and social media flooded with orange before half the audience had even finished the episode. The choice of this platform was no accident. From the start of her career, Swift has mastered the art of the planned surprise, but this time, she took it up a notch, folding her private life into the mechanics of the launch, blurring the line between the intimate and the strategic. It's high-value emotional marketing. The audience isn't just receiving information. They're witnessing an authentic moment woven directly into the album's narrative, and that narrative is tightly controlled. On the podcast, she lays it out. The Life of a Showgirl, 12 tracks, release date the 3rd of October, 2025. No vague titles, no hazy timelines. She knows that precision fuels frenzy. Each detail becomes an anchor for fans, who instantly turn into an unpaid promotional army. This launch slots into a crystal-clear chromatic and visual strategy. Orange. For weeks, the color had taken over her public appearances, dresses, accessories, stage details. At the moment of the announcement, the Empire State Building lit up in orange. Spotify dressed its interface for the occasion, Google played along with subtle visual Easter eggs, and a handful of major brands: United Airlines, Olive Garden, Shake Shack, McDonald's, X, Twitter, temporarily adopted the hue, transforming it into a universal signal for new Swift era. This isn't just a graphic identity, it's a social marker. Wearing orange in certain online communities became a badge of belonging. Musically, Swift kept the suspense while offering familiar touch points. She reunited with Max Martin and Shellback, two key producers behind her biggest hits, Blank Space, Shake It Off, guaranteeing a solid pop backbone. A notable absence, Jack Antonoff, a fixture of her recent eras, is nowhere in the credits. That omission has already fueled speculation about the album's sonic direction. She also confirmed a collaboration with Sabrina Carpenter, aligning the release squarely with Gen Z, and an unexpected cover of George Michael's Father Figure, a wink to 80-second pop. It's a blend of continuity and novelty, designed to both reassure and provoke curiosity. The artistic direction emerges from a clearly defined palette: cabaret, sequins, rhinestones, retro glamour with a hint of melancholy. The first official images show Swift in water, evoking literary and artistic references. A modernized Ophelia, alongside revue-style stagecraft and the archetype of the American showgirl. It's not just an aesthetic world. It's a narrative promise. Every image, every reference prepares the listener for a 12-track story, an album to be watched as much as it is heard. The numbers back up. The impact. Within 24 hours of the announcement, New Heights' audience spiked 3,000% overall and 618% among women, unprecedented for an NFL program. Swift-related clips looped endlessly on YouTube, TikTok, and X, racking up millions of cumulative views. Pre-orders for the album surged, boosted by physical collector's editions aligned with the orange color code and showgirl theme. In a market where physical sales are rare, Swift continues to enforce a hybrid model where the object is as important as the music. Behind this move lies a lesson. In a saturated landscape, creating a unifying moment takes more than a strong song. It demands a complete narrative ecosystem. Visual, contextual, emotional. Swift doesn't just release an album. She builds an event that exists before a single note is heard. And she does it in a space that, until now, wasn't hers a sports podcast, but one she fully occupies, redrawing her own media boundaries. This ability to hijack a channel and turn it into cultural leverage is one of her sharpest tools. The play also proves that an album can still be a shared cultural moment, provided you understand that such a moment is born not from the release itself, but from the anticipation and staging that precede it. In an era where most artists drop new tracks into an endless interchangeable stream, Swift orchestrates a countdown in which every step, color, setting, statement feeds into a larger story. She's not just selling songs. She's selling an entire chapter of an expanding universe. It's tempting to reduce this strategy to fan service or cold marketing calculus. That would ignore the fact that Swift is also an architect of her image, playing on multiple scales at once. The appearance of intimacy, announcing in a space as personal as a podcast, and the monumental spectacle, lighting up a skyscraper. The precise detail, 12 tracks, no more. And the vast mythos, the showgirl as a cultural archetype. This blend of control and narrative play is what allows her to be both omnipresent and constantly renewed. By choosing an unexpected venue for a meticulously engineered announcement, rolling out a powerful visual identity that infiltrates public space, and building a world that unfolds before the music even starts, Swift reminds us of a truth many have forgotten. In contemporary pop culture, music is as much about context as it is about content. And until other artists grasp that equation, chances are that even in a world without a song of the summer, she'll keep creating moments everyone recognizes, even those who swear they don't listen to her.
Cappuccino and croissant, you got these like your babe.
There was a time when the Song of the Summer wasn't a marketing concept. It was a cultural certainty. You didn't vote for it. You lived it. It landed in May or June, took over every radio station, spilled into beach bars, clubs, weddings that felt like clubs, and clubs that tried to feel like weddings. It was the era when a chorus like Despacito, Call Me Maybe, or Blurred Lines could cross borders and unite everyone from a taxi driver to a DJ in Ibiza to your aunt, who doesn't speak a word of English but can belt out the refrain flawlessly. In 2025, that phenomenon has vanished. Not because we've run out of catchy songs, but because it's been dissolved in an ocean of algorithms and microtrends that barely last longer than a long weekend. This isn't some misplaced nostalgia talking. It's backed by serious analysis, like the piece Wired ran this summer. The magazine declared, "The song of the summer is dead," for one simple reason: the extreme fragmentation of taste and distribution channels. Where radio and MTV once enforced a small handful of omnipresent hits, Spotify, TikTok, YouTube, and other platforms now personalize the music experience to such a degree that everyone lives inside their own sonic bubble. The result: instead of one shared anthem, we now have hundreds of micro anthems blowing up in niche spaces before disappearing as quickly as they arrive. The algorithm is both culprit and accomplice. Culprit, because it doesn't try to create a common soundtrack, it just wants to keep you hooked by serving what you're already predisposed to like. Accomplice, because it fuels your immediate pleasure with sounds calibrated to your profile, whether they come from global superstars or some unknown artist who just uploaded a bedroom banger. On TikTok, a sound can rack up millions of uses in a matter of days, then evaporate, replaced by the next memeable hook. The lifespan of a hit is no longer measured in seasons, but in weeks. That volatility changes everything. Once upon a time, a summer anthem enjoyed a full media cycle: release, rise, saturation, decline, then nostalgic revival years later. Today, a viral sound can hit peak saturation in 72 hours before half the general public has even heard it. And once a track has done the rounds on TikTok, it's almost impossible to give it a second life elsewhere without triggering listener fatigue. Another factor: sheer volume. Streaming has opened the floodgates to an unprecedented level of output. According to Luminate, roughly 120,000 new songs are uploaded to platforms every single day. In this deluge, competition is so fierce that even the major labels struggle to keep a single track on top for more than a few weeks. Where Get Lucky could dominate an entire summer in 2013, a hit in 2025 has to fight just to survive past its release month. This shift isn't entirely new. The warning signs were there in the late 2010 second, when songs of the summer started to vary by country, community, or platform. But in 2025, the break is definitive. There's no longer a global consensus. Even when a track does break out, it often remains trapped within one sphere. The recent Jet 2 holiday song, a massive meme in the UK thanks to TikTok, illustrates the point: huge local buzz, near zero international footprint. The disappearance of this musical ritual raises a bigger question. What do we lose when we lose the song of the summer? The answer can be summed up in one word: connection. A shared anthem is a shared language. It's that moment at a party when people leap up to sing the chorus together, when a song becomes the unspoken soundtrack to a stretch of your life. Without that, music remains an individual pleasure, but it no longer builds the same collective memories. And yet, paradoxically, some megastars still manage to create these moments, though no longer via a song of the summer in the traditional sense. Taylor Swift, for example, still engineers music events that break through algorithmic bubbles, as we saw with the announcement of The Life of a Showgirl. Beyoncé, with Break My Soul, or Bad Bunny with his blockbuster albums, have also pulled off communal cultural moments. But these no longer hinge on one song ruling the season. They're built on broader strategies, visual worlds, narratives, and marketing ecosystems that extend far beyond the music itself. The consequences of this shift are double-edged for the industry. On one hand, the diversity of tastes and hyper-personalization give visibility to artists who would never have broken through in the FM radio era. On the other, the absence of unifying musical moments erodes pop's shared culture dimension. It's no accident that, in this vacuum, we see new forms of collective rituals emerging: tour events like the Eras Tour or Renaissance World Tour, niche festivals that become pilgrimages, or viral challenges that take the place of a single, dominant summer hit choreography. The phenomenon also has a psychological impact. The song of the summer, through its repetition and overexposure, created a sense of stability, a sonic through line that carried the season. In a world where everything changes fast and information moves at breakneck speed, that stability is gone. We consume music the way we scroll a feed, quickly, intensely, then on to the next thing. And that logic is reshaping how artists make music, crafting tracks to hit within the first 15 seconds on TikTok, rather than hold steady in radio rotation for 3 months. Ironically, the death of the Universal Summer Anthem also opens creative doors. Without the pressure to dominate an entire season, artists can focus on niches, explore less conventional sounds, aim for depth rather than omnipresence. The trade-off is that music becomes a patchwork of micro-communities and the collective experience fragments. Tomorrow's memories won't be tied to a chorus shared across every airwave, but to a track you found in your own playlist, tied to your own specific moment, no less precious, but no longer universal. In 2025, the definition of Song of the Summer needs rewriting. It's no longer a track that belongs to everyone, it's the one that belongs to you. But by some algorithmic or media miracle, it might also slip into your neighbor's headphones. It's a rare, almost accidental event that manages to survive the velocity of today's news cycle and break through the invisible walls our apps have built around us. And maybe the real challenge for artists now isn't to create the next Despacito, but to invent a new musical ritual, one that can reignite that small collective flame we use to light together every summer.
Cappuccino and croissant, you got these like a babe.
We tend to think of popular music as moving in a simple cycle. New sounds emerge, trends follow one another, the audience gets bored, and we move on. But if you look closely at the latest streaming data, a more complex pattern comes into focus, and it tells a story that goes well beyond passing fads. In 2025, two unlikely genres are experiencing significant growth in a saturated global market that is otherwise slowing down: recession pop and contemporary Christian gospel music. One evokes the carefree spirit of 2007-2012, the other draws on a millennia-old spiritual imagination, yet both serve the same function: offering emotional refuge in a world that increasingly feels like a permanent alert notification. The numbers from Luminate via AP News are clear. US. Music streaming hit a record volume in the first half of 2.5 trillion streams, but overall growth slowed to 4.6%, compared to 8% over the same period in 2024. In that context, notable gains are rare. Recession Pop is up 6.4% in streams, driven by a generation rediscovering the precision-engineered euphoria of tracks like Party in the USA, TikTok, and We Found Love. Christian and gospel music is also seeing a marked rise, with a surprisingly young audience, roughly 60% women, and nearly a third millennials or Gen Z. Recession Pop is not a new genre. It's a time capsule. Saturated production, explosive choruses, and the hedonistic energy of the years just before the 2008 global financial crisis. Back then, hits seemed built for clubs, college parties, and endless iPod Classic playlists. Today, the revival isn't just about nostalgia. It's a way to artificially reconstruct an era perceived as lighter. It's no accident. These sounds are resurfacing in a tense economic climate. They're the musical equivalent of comfort food, sweet, energizing, a little artificial, but irresistibly effective. Modern Christian, gospel music plays on a completely different emotional register. We're talking about pop or indie-style productions with polished arrangements, a carefully curated image, and lyrics centered on faith, hope, and community. In a world where collective anxiety has become a constant background hum, these songs offer a sense of stability and meaning. Where recession pop says, "Dance like it's still 2010, contemporary gospel quietly reassures, it's going to be okay. You're not alone." This is no coincidence. It's a direct response to a specific emotional need. Sociologically, the two genres may seem like opposites. In practice, they complement each other perfectly as collective coping strategies. One transports us back to an idealized past, the other projects us toward a comforting transcendence. Together, they map the psychological needs of an audience worn down by the constant acceleration of the news cycle. It's all the more striking because they're growing in a market where even pop's biggest stars are struggling to maintain momentum. The recession pop wave is also fed by TikTok and social media. Snippets of old videos recycled as memes, choreography set to forgotten hooks, challenges that breathe new life into pre-streaming era hits. These revivals are not always orchestrated by the artists themselves. Often they start with the random use of an audio clip that spreads and reignites interest in the full track. And because streaming puts the entire global discography within reach, a single trend can send a song rocketing back up the charts like a cork in sparkling water. The gospel resurgence works differently. It's fueled by a more engaged, more loyal audience, one that follows artists over the long term and values the message as much as the music. This cohesion translates into strong turnout for concerts, specialist festivals, and community events, as well as highly active digital word of mouth. In a music ecosystem dominated by fleeting consumption, that kind of loyalty is gold. It allows artists to build sustainable careers and keep their numbers strong without relying solely on viral spikes. It would be easy to assume this renewed interest in faith-driven music is a purely American phenomenon. In reality, similar signals are appearing elsewhere. In the UK, indie artists increasingly weave spiritual references into their lyrics. In South Korea, certain K-pop groups occasionally release gospel-toned tracks or songs inspired by choral harmonies. In Latin America, reggaeton and Christian music have collided in unexpected collaborations. This hybridization reflects a cultural shift. Faith and spiritual uplift are no longer confined to liturgical settings, they're finding a home in mainstream pop formats. From a marketing standpoint, the two trends use different but equally effective levers. Recession Pop capitalizes on nostalgia, one of the most monetizable emotions. It triggers memories, which forge an immediate emotional connection, which drives repeat listening. Modern gospel banks on identity and belonging. Listening to an artist becomes a way to affirm values and strengthen ties to a community. In both cases, the relationship goes beyond musical appreciation and into relational territory. And that may be the key. In a world without a shared song of the summer, as seen in the previous segment, people turn to music that offers something more than a passing buzz. Recession Pop gives them a festive refuge. Gospel offers a spiritual one. Two answers to the same question. How do you keep finding joy or calm when the soundtrack to current events is an anxious roar? Ironically, these trends aren't new. They've been there in the background, waiting for the right context to bring them forward. The difference is that in 2025, they're no longer niche, they're sitting in mainstream playlists, showing up in recommendations, and competing for visibility with the most anticipated new releases. Their success is something broader about the state of culture. We need novelty less than we need anchors. And sometimes, those anchors come in the form of a hook that smells like warm soda and the sweat of a 2011 dance floor, or a choral harmony that hints at a light at the end of the tunnel. In the end, what these numbers and movements reveal is that music doesn't just mirror the times, it acts as a tool for collective emotional regulation. The artists who understand this, whether they sell glitter or prayer, have a head start. And in a landscape that's fractured in every direction, these bubbles of nostalgia or spirituality may be the last places where a sense of community survives. Not the all-encompassing kind we once had, but one strong enough to hold its ground against the noise of the world.
Cappuccino and croissant, you got these fire, babe.
3 stories, 3 atmospheres, 1 shared truth. Music is no longer the collective playground it once was. In the first segment, Taylor Swift proved it's still possible to spark a unifying moment, but only by building an entire ecosystem, a blend of surgical marketing, razor-sharp visual identity, and storytelling structured like a binge-worthy television series. In the second, we dissected the still warm corpse of the song of the summer, a victim of algorithms feeding us micro-anthems with built-in expiration dates, not dead from lack of talent, but from the absence of a shared stage where they could take root. And in the third, we traced where audiences retreat when that stage disappears, into the recycled euphoria of the 2010 second or the comforting harmonies of contemporary gospel, 2 ways of saying, it's going to be okay, even if no one's really sure. What emerges from these 3 snapshots is a shift in music's function. It's no longer just the soundtrack to a season or the crystallizer of a collective moment, it's becoming a tool for emotional regulation in the age of hyperfragmentation. Megastars who still want to command unanimous attention have to create far more than a catchy track. The rest are betting on niches strong enough to withstand the rapid erosion of trends. In both cases, music is as much about context as it is about content. So should we resign ourselves to a world without shared anthems, where each summer plays out in airtight sonic bubbles? Maybe. But here's the upside. The absence of mass consensus also makes room for something new, fewer forced sing-alongs, more creative freedom, and tighter communities, even if they're smaller. This isn't the end of music's connective thread. It's its transformation. For now, everyone holds on to their own song of the summer, whether it was born in an NFL podcast, on an imaginary 2010 dance floor, or in the warm light of a church sanctuary. And if you really want to recreate a collective moment, there's always one last move. Play your favorite track loud enough for your neighbor to hear. If you're lucky, they'll know the chorus. If you've enjoyed this episode, know that this isn't where it ends. Cappuccino and Croissant is a living studio. My books, my music, my interviews, and the behind-the-scenes stories I don't share anywhere else. Want to keep the conversation going, dig into the full stories behind these topics, or simply support independent creation? Dive into my world at capcroissantmedia.com. You'll find all my projects, publications, episodes, and even easy ways to help keep this voice independent. Join my Patreon community for exclusive content, early topic voting, and first look access to what's coming next. Or, if you just want to send a coffee or a XXL cappuccino, there's my PayPal, to me. Because yes, even the smallest gesture can make a big difference. Pop culture isn't a passive spectacle. So pull up a chair, order a croissant, and let's make sure these conversations don't stay locked inside our headphones, but spill into the real world.
The cup's dry, the croissant's gone, but the aftertaste's still strong. We've sifted the hype from the headlines, left the sparkle where it belongs. Cappuccino and croissant, your guilty pleasure with a sharper edge. See you next week, bring an appetite. Out of the future tastes sad.